I like the dog. It's friendly.
Don't you just love it when you stumble across a hidden gem? Sometimes it can feel like you've seen everything. Obviously, you haven't, but it can feel that way sometimes, and like there are no more hidden gems and cult classics. But then you stumble across a tasty treat that just hits the way you want it to. And Deep End is just that. It is also, most definitely, a product of its time.
Oh no.
But we'll get there. I had actually never heard of this film before, and I only know about it because someone on Twitter posted about it. For the life of me, I can't remember who they were, but God bless you, because they posted some images from the film and they just really caught my attention. I also discovered that David Lynch is a fan of the film, and so I decided to check it out. But before we get into the video itself, I just want to take a second to say thank you very much to Veronica and John Cleveland, who support this channel via Ko-fi? Oh, I just want to call it coffee. And Patreon. Their donations really help keep this channel going. I am a teeny tiny channel. I don't get paid from YouTube, so every little bit helps. So thank you once again to Veronica and John. You guys are awesome. And on to the video. Released in 1970 and written and directed by Polish director Jerzy Skolimowski, Deep End is a coming-of-age story that delights in its dreamlike vibes, surreal visual delights, and taunts us with sleazy characters, all seen through the eyes of a young boy. And from the poster I saw, it was obvious that a tragedy was going to befall one of these characters, and obviously, as the little trauma goblin I am, I'm here for it. That said, I will try not to spoil anything. This film really is a genuine cult hit. Not many people have seen it, so I don't want to spoil it. I want you to go and seek it out for yourself. Mike is 15 years old. He's just left school and starts his first job at the local baths and swimming pool. He meets co-worker Susan, who's in her early 20s, and what starts as an innocent crush slowly morphs into an obsession. Susan has a fiancé, Chris, but she's also having an affair with the sleazy girl's swim coach. Susan is manipulative and toys with Mike endlessly. She's beautiful and she's fully aware of the power she holds over men. Susan knows Mike has a crush on her, and she uses it to her advantage and to have some fun. Predominantly shot in Munich with only a few London locations, if it wasn't for the quite obvious ADR in a lot of the scenes, you wouldn't know that this film wasn't shot entirely in London, and with a fully British cast. Jane Asher, who plays Susan, had been in a couple of films before Deep End. She was well known in the British press for being Paul McCartney's girlfriend too. But they had broken up just before the film was made. She's really good in this. She's able to capture an aloof and alluring character. She's a flawed, complicated young woman. John Moulder-Brown, who turned 17 just before filming started, is great as the innocent, tortured, hormone-fueled Mike. Something about this film intrigued me, and that was the use of colour. It really stood out to me, and I'm talking about beyond it being set at the tail end of swinging 60s London.
Yeah, baby! Yeah.
It's more intentional. For example, the receptionist at the baths, who we only ever see wearing a green cardigan that matches perfectly with the green window she sits behind. Could this be a symbol of her jealousy towards Susan? Susan's fabulous yellow raincoat also really stood out. Yellow is often considered a positive colour, one that represents sunshine, joy and optimism. But in this case, you could argue that the yellow of her raincoat is a warning, caution, danger. The red paint that shows up more and more throughout the film brings to mind sex, danger, passion, blood. David Lynch mentioned Deep End when he was asked about colour movies in an interview with the NME in 1982. He said, "I don't like colour movies, and I can hardly think about colour. It really cheapens things for me, and there's never been a colour movie I've freaked out over, except one, this thing called Deep End, which had really great art direction. That to me is the whole thing. It's what you're pointing the camera at." This film is very much of its time, although it certainly comments on it as well. For example, the creepy swim coach and his inappropriate touching of the girls, it's all framed like it's just good fun. He's married with children, is decades older than these young girls, and is carrying on an affair with Susan. But later in the film, Susan calls him out on his predatory behaviour, and it's a great little speech. There's also the special sessions that Mike is expected to take part in as part of his job at the baths. It's basically assault, and it's played for laughs, as Diana Dors brings herself to climax, shall we say. As she talks loudly about football. It's very odd, you gotta see it to believe it. But she's actually great in the role as a sexually frustrated older woman. It's also worth remembering that he's only 15, but even if he was 16, which is the legal age of consent here in the UK, it still wouldn't be okay. There's also a couple of homophobic slurs thrown around, which again shows itself to be a product of its time. And that's not an excuse, just simply pointing out that that's the way that a lot of people spoke. And still do, sadly, but who cares about them? There's some great foreshadowing throughout the film, which in retrospect I thought was fabulous. Some little moments will stand out at the time, but others are quite subtle. Deep End really is an undiscovered gem. Not many people seem to have seen it. I think it's quite hard to get hold of in terms of streaming. I know it's available to stream on the BFI player, but I don't think it's available on, Netflix, Hulu, Amazon, what have you. But I do know that Turner Classic Movies screened Deep End as part of their TMC Underground series, so perhaps you might find it there again. And it is available on DVD. I definitely recommend getting it. I wasn't familiar with the director, Jerzy Skolimowski, but I'm going to see if anything else he's made interests me. I hope you liked this little video. If you did, please consider subscribing and leaving me a little comment. Let me know if you've seen the film and what you think of it. In the meantime, have a great day, water your plants, and stay spooky.
I'm going to give the people what they want. Sensation, horror, shock. Send them out in the streets to tell their friends how wonderful it is to be scared to death.